You're listening to the YA Books Podcast. I'm your host, Phillip Carroll, and this is episode number 25. They say in podcasting that the second most popular place to give up is at the 25th episode. I understand why that happens now. I really haven't gotten any feedback from listeners, whether they've enjoyed any specific episode, listened regularly, or get annoyed by my consistent use of and nice. I'm not giving up yet. I think I'll give it a year and then reevaluate how the podcast is going. I'm still having fun talking to writers. If there are writers you'd like to hear or questions you'd like to ask, send me an email at yabookspodcast@gmail.com. I recorded this episode with Cameron Dayton in December, so he talks about things coming out next year. So when you hear him say that, he's talking about 2016. Thanks. Here's the episode.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
How are you doing, Phillip?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing great, thanks. I really appreciate your patience with the slow arrival tonight.
No problem. So, do you commute into and out of San Francisco?
No, I'm actually in San Mateo, which is just south
of there, yeah.
But it's just close enough to San Francisco to catch some of the horrible traffic there. So I just started this job here a week ago, so I'm still figuring out the time or when it's best to leave and best to arrive to avoid that stuff.
Oh, sure. I think in San Mateo, no time is good.
Yeah, I fear that may be the correct answer.
Yeah, I live in Modesto, so we use the San Mateo Bridge when we go to the airport.
Uh-huh.
I avoid the whole area when I can.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can figure out some surface street ways to place I'm staying at, because it's crazy. I've tried leaving earlier, and then I got held up later, and it's always just kind of bad.
So did you just move to the area for this job? I
did, yes.
Where were you from before that?
So before that, I was creative director with Electronic Arts, and they had a studio in Salt Lake City, actually, that I was doing some work at. We worked on the Minions game, which is one of their big titles. And the funny thing is they actually had me come out here to Redwood Shores area to meet with the big EA HQ, I guess, is out here. And now I'm with a studio called Tryon Worlds, and their office is just down the street from the EA office. So it feels like I was destined to be back here.
Sure. Great. Now, what do you do for this? What are you doing with the company now?
So I'm a creative director. So I've been involved in video games for the past 15 years.
Okay.
And so I've got my start as an animator, and moved up into another studio we funded, where I started doing level design and a lot of writing. And I guess just by not surrendering my desire to be involved in a lot of things, I maintain the ability to wear a lot of hats and eventually be a creative director.
So as creative director, are you in charge of an entire project?
Yeah, well, in this company, they have 6 different games, and I make sure that all 6 of them have a cohesive look and feel, and any narrative put forward through marketing or through social media or through the games themselves is consistent with the flavor that the game is supposed to carry.
What is the variety of game? What genre is it?
Oh, we've got, with 6 games, we've got games ranging from fantasy, massively multiplayer online games to we've got a quick strategy kind of futuristic game. There's a game it's a voxel game, which is a cube-based game similar to Minecraft.
Okay.
That where you can go in and it's much more adventure-based. One of the studio's big claims to fame was they worked with the Sci-Fi channel to create a game called Defiance, and there was a show on the channel called Defiance that synced up with what the events of the game, and so you can get in and play. and events and characters from the TV show would occasionally pop in and enroll. So it was like there were two living worlds, that had various transmedia avenues to access them, which was kind of cool.
Well, that sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
I played Eve online for about, I don't know, 8 years. Finally gave it up. But they always talk about their development teams for this thing and that thing, and I was always wondering how that figured into the whole game.
It's very, because I've worked on different sorts of games. I've worked on, the games that you work on for a year and a half, 2 years, and then you put it in a box and you put it on the shelf at Best Buy and cross your fingers and hope people will buy it. And then you've got these persistent world games that are these massively multiplayer online games like, when I spent 6 years at Blizzard and worked on World of Warcraft, and and that is a world that is it's constantly on and it's constantly going, and instead of selling a new game every couple of years, you bring out expansions that build on the game and add more depth and more story, and it's an interesting challenge because you basically have to imagine trying to put an addition onto a car while it's still running. But it makes it very fun too, because you learn to respond to your audience. You learn what they're liking, what they're not liking, and can build the game to fit that.
Yeah. World of Warcraft ruined my life. I was playing Star Wars Galaxies, and Warcraft came out and just destroyed the game. Everyone left. And I was still trying to be a Jedi, and everyone was gone.
It was the game that kind of became the game. No other games out there could even compare. I mean, when it first came out, the most popular massively multiplayer online RPG at the time had 250,000 members.
Sure.
And they were hoping maybe they could get half of that. What they had not realized was the incredible goodwill they'd earned in the gaming community, and there was so much excitement about it. It just kept growing and growing, and I believe maxed out at about 12 million people.
Oh, wow.
And no other game has even come close. No other game has even been able to get, a 15th of that number. And it's been really interesting to see how they maintained that. And while I was working there, I tried to see if I can get an eye on what was their secret sauce. And unfortunately, there was no one silver bullet. It was a combination of a lot of very cool, very clever, and very lucky things that happened.
Yeah, I was a major Diablo addict for Diablo 1, and I think that's the only game I've ever played clear through to the end. And I probably should have switched to Warcraft, but
well, it's Diablo was again one that just when I talked about Blizzard gaining this goodwill in the gamer community, a lot of it was from Diablo and Diablo 2, which were such fantastic games that people played them years beyond when they normally will drop in, especially in the PC gaming world, where a lot of games, quickly, become obvious that they're behind the times, and you see a lot of how they've aged. But through a unique combination of stylization and very addictive, gameplay, they've been able to maintain a very loyal audience. And in both in StarCraft, in Diablo, and in Warcraft.
Yeah, when I saw Diablo 3 came out, I actually went out and got PlayStation 4 and bought it. We sat down and played it for a couple hours, but really, we use our PlayStation to watch Netflix. I'm an older person now, I guess.
That's my. I'm more of an Xbox guy myself, but it has become my entertainment center, and that's very much what it is. It's the center point that I can access Netflix and Hulu and occasionally play some games.
Yeah, I'll get back to Diablo someday when I get a few minutes.
Sure. I highly recommend it. It's actually, I got to work on some of the story stuff with the really talented guys over at Blizzard on that team, and it's they've explored some really exciting elements there.
Now, I see on your Amazon author page that you have a story written in the Diablo 3 environment, or is
Yes.
that referring to actually from the game itself you wrote storyline?
No, it was. I mean, I was initially hired on to Blizzard to work on the Titan team, and Titan was the code word for the game that eventually became Overwatch. And it was a team of about a dozen people at the time, so it was just very, very ground level. And I got to go in and help to lay down a lot of the foundation stones for the universe that the this game was going to be built around. And after a few years in that, I shifted over to the creative development team. And the creative development team handles all of the narrative that flows from these games into the transmedia, into novels, into comic books, into short stories, and we had Diablo's coming out. And we decided, we want to reinvigorate the fan base out there. We want to introduce them to these classes they've forgotten. And so we decided to do an anthology with a series of short stories, and each short story was going to be about one of the classes. So we had the demon hunter, we had the barbarian, we had the monk. And so they asked me, which one do you want to write? And I said, you know what, I as much as I would love to get into the intellectual and spiritual elements of the monk or the sorcerer, I got to do the barbarian. I've just got to do the barbarian. I just spent so many. I mean, I spent probably years of time playing as a barbarian in Diablo 1 and 2, and I just wanted to really go Conan on that.
Go in and smash things.
Exactly. So I got to write the barbarian short story, and we put these stories out before the launch of Diablo 3 as a way to build up excitement, and it was so fun because with the massive Blizzard fan base out there. I don't know many other places where you can put out a short story online and immediately get tens of thousands of responses and replies, and the audience going crazy about it, and that was a rush. And I got to do that for Diablo, for StarCraft, and World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I saw you had those other books there too. Yeah, that's amazing. To have such good feedback and such good response from.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's exciting, and it teaches you to shore up your feelings about your writing, because anytime you throw something out to the public and you're going to get a lot of responses, not all those responses are going to be happy and enthusiastic, and so you learn very quickly that how much taste becomes a factor of whether something's liked or not liked, and you learn what people look for in these sort of stories. So it was a very quick and a very hard lesson for some people.
Yeah. So what is your educational background? How did you end up where you entered into the field?
Yeah, you know what? That's the interesting thing about game design, and I think probably writing in general for a lot of people, is it was a fairly circuitous route. I, believe it or not, I was actually studying to be a doctor.
Oh, yeah.
To be a radiologist. I was pre-med at Brigham Young University. I was majoring in zoology, and I had 4 years down. I had my chem, my OChem, my physics, all of those knocked out, and I was getting ready to take the MCAT, which is the test you take to decide where you're going to go to med school. And I had a moment of inspiration, I guess you could say. I saw Toy Story. It's kind of a cheesy thing, but I saw Toy Story, and I was blown away by the power of storytelling that Pixar displayed there. And that same year, the college offered a computer animation program, and so I decided, you know what, that's, I think, what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'd always been writing and drawing and telling stories through my creative endeavors, but I always assumed that would be a sideways sort of thing. I always assumed, well, yeah, I'll be a doctor, and then I'll do some writing on the side. Some folks have been able to do that successfully, but I decided to jump onto this. So I actually helped the school to put together the first computer animation program. Was the first to graduate from it with my friend Donald Mustard. And he and I eventually formed a game development studio called Chair Entertainment. And we worked on a game called Advent Rising. and it was a ridiculously ambitious game. We were going to be doing, it was going to be Star Wars meets World of Warcraft meets Conan. It was going to have all sorts of mixed adventure types in it, and in the end, it was an amazing learning experience. But one of the best things that came out of it was I wrote an email to one of my favorite science fiction authors to see if he would come on board and help us to write the script. And it was Orson Scott Card. He actually, I don't know how we lucked out, but he responded to the email. He liked the idea. He says, "Hey, I can do this." So we had 20 levels in the game. He came down and started writing, and then got notice from his agent that he had a novel he needed to get back and get working on. And so he'd written, about the first half of the game, and we needed to finish it. We had a voiceover session in LA in 3 weeks, and so everybody looked at me. They're like, well, because, I'd published some short stories already. And so they said, "Cameron, can you finish this?" So I said, "All right, I'm taking my laptop home. Nobody call me." So I headed home and wrote the rest of the game and bounced it off Scott. And he said, "Cameron, this sounds great. This actually feels like my style." Luckily, I had been enough of a fan of his work that I was able to emulate his manner of writing. And yeah, so that game came out, and we got some great reviews for the story. We'd obviously had tried to take on too much first time studio, so we tried to tailor back our projects after that. We did some smaller games for the Xbox Live Arcade that did fairly well, and then actually ended up putting out a big hit, which was Infinity Blade, and it was the #1 best-selling game on the iPhone. And by that time, I transitioned over to Blizzard and was working, on their Overwatch team. But that's kind of where I got my taste for maybe this writing is more than just stuff I can do for games. And I started working on my novel on Infinity Blade. I'd had my anthologies that we put out through Blizzard. I wrote Blizzard's first web comic. It was called Kerrigan, Hope and Vengeance, and it was a comic about Kerrigan, the Queen of Blades, that led to the expansion Heart of the Swarm. And so yeah, that's probably more convoluted than you expected of a path to get there, but I don't regret a single turn in the way.
No, I bet not. Now, on is it Etherwalker or Etherwalker?
Etherwalker.
Did you have that written before you took it to Future House Publishing, or was that something? Did you know Adam from the graphics arts program there?
Well, see, so that's the funny thing, because Adam and I were, casual acquaintances. We'd spoken before, but then, I got the job over at Blizzard. He started doing animation for a lot of these big film houses, and I think probably a good, 15 years had gone by since we'd even, crossed paths. And I had finished Etherwalker, and I was shopping it around to some different houses, and I had some interest with some of the folks I'd spoken with, while I was at Blizzard. And then I just came across Adam, and I saw what he was doing with Future House Publishing. I gave him a call, and we just had the best conversation. I talked about some of the transmedia work I'd done at Blizzard, and I talked about some of the interesting social marketing things that I wanted to do, and he was so open and willing to work with me on that. And some of these other houses I'd spoken with were, they wanted me to send them their book, and then, thank you very much, they'd send me some checks if it sold. And Adam, I think with the advantage of it being a little bit of a newer publishing house, he was much more open to letting me take an active role in not just writing the book, but in the marketing and the publicity.
Great. Now, the cover of the book, was that your own work, or?
Well, it wasn't. I sketched out some thumbnails. Again, having a little bit of an art illustration background, I put together some ideas. But then there's a fantastic artist who I'd worked with while I was at Blizzard named Ludo Lulabi. He's from France, and he had done some of the covers for my writing at Blizzard. And he's one of the few illustrators who actually reads the copy that he's doing the work for. And so instead of just going from a suggested design, he is able to do concepts that completely capture not just the characters and the objects of the story, but the feeling from the story as well. And I like that he had a really strong sort of a comic art background as well. I thought it was something that was fitting for my book, and I directed his design, but it's his art through and through, and I couldn't be happier.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's an excellent cover. I really, when Adam released it on Facebook, I commented right away. That's a beautiful cover.
Yeah,
so
I think it really stands out. It's it shows a character, but it shows he's got his swords, but obviously a little bit of a broken down science fiction world behind him, and so it communicates a lot.
Yeah. Now it's a trilogy.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the book? What's it about?
So it's let's see, what's the best way to summarize the book? It's the story of mankind having reached just the apex of technology, right up to the point of a singularity where they had all the wonderful things that high technology can provide, and had reached this point through the gifts of a group of people that had arisen through a Mexican Renaissance. And it was a group of mathematicians who had delved back into some of the Mayan number systems and had used that to build incredible advances in computation. And this led towards artificial intelligence that was able to run pretty much everything for us. And unfortunately, through some mistaken programming, also brought around the end of this modern world. So the story picks up hundreds of years after that ended. And so what starts very much as a fantasy story. I mean, you're following this young shepherd in a town up in the mountains, and you don't hear much about any technology. But little by little, as he crosses over this sort of broken landscape and comes across some of the monstrosities that are left there, you realize these are not mythological creatures. These are actually remnants of a technological civilization that have been renamed and reclassified by people who were so separate from this technology that they have no other words for them but monsters. And our hero, the Etherwalker, is Enoch, and he is the last remnant of this group of technomancers, of people who had an incredible power over machines. But what does it mean to have power over machines in a world where the machines have all failed and are broken and crumbling around you? And so we begin to get a feel for Enoch's understanding of this world and see it through his eyes. But there's definitely a sense of melancholy over what once was.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And it looks like it's doing pretty well. How long has it been out?
So let's see. I think it's been out now about. We opened at the Salt Lake City Comic-Con, and that's when we had our first copies out. And it was available on Amazon a few weeks after that. And so I think that would put us at about 2 months that it's been out now. And yeah, we've had some really exciting signs. It was a Amazon bestseller. It was number one in the cyberpunk classification, right next to Ernest Cline's Ready Player One, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And it's been holding up on a couple other very interesting categories in metaphysical and visionary. It's been holding up in just science fiction as well. And so yeah, it's been really exciting to see its excitement and popularity. And I've gotten emails from people that were excited by the book that hadn't really expected it. It was definitely a risk. It was a book that wasn't quite a fantasy, wasn't quite science fiction, and fits squarely in the middle. And I've been really happy to see that there is indeed an interest out there for books that walk astride that line.
Sure. Now, how long do you think it'll be before the second one is out?
Well, I know that my my publisher would love to see it out early part of next year, and so and by I'm shooting to have something for them. We're thinking at spring or summer
Okay.
of next year.
Yeah, it's
The nice
reasonable.
part is when I wrote the first book, I had already mapped out the trilogy, so I'm hard at work filling those pages as we speak.
Great. Yeah. When do you get time to write?
Well, luckily, this is my favorite thing to do, and so I'll usually spend a day designing games built around monsters and unicorns and dragons, and then I'll get home and I'll have the real fun with my own story. So,
Sure. What authors do you find as your inspiration?
you know what? It's interesting. I find that is an evolving list.
Uh-huh.
And I like I mentioned earlier, Orson Scott Card was an early favorite of mine because he was one of the I thought better examples of science fiction writers who built strong characters, who had
Uh-huh.
wonderful dialogue, and I think a lot of this stems from the fact that he used to be a playwright. He actually wrote dialogue for people on the stage, and I think that definitely added to his character building. Um, as far as prose goes, I think you'd have a hard time finding anybody better than Ray Bradbury
Oh yeah.
for just beautiful words, for poetry that serves a story of science fiction and alternative ways of looking at things.
Yeah. He was
Um,
also a playwright.
you also a playwright as well, yeah. And so I like lyrical fiction and science fiction. The currently been reading a lot of China Mayville.
Okay.
Perdido Street Station is such a wonderfully colorful, dark, and tasty book. I actually just started rereading that one again. Um, I, uh, I read a great science fiction book by David Marusek called Talking Heads. That's it's sort of a Neil Stephenson-esque future cyberpunk, and of course you don't want to throw out Neil Stephenson, who does fantastic work. Um, I did a lot of work with Brandon Sanderson, actually, who's another BYU graduate.
Sure.
In fact, worked with him when he was the editor at the Leading Edge, which was the college science fiction magazine. And in fact, when we did Infinity Blade, he did the novella for that work. And so when I was at Blizzard, I actually flew him out to come talk to the writers of that company because I really wanted to see if we couldn't bring out some great writers to inspire better game writing.
Sure.
And talked with him about doing some work for Blizzard, and unfortunately his plate was very, very full.
Yeah.
I actually had Pat Rothfuss out as well to come and talk to our crew. And so, yeah, being at Blizzard was a wonderful opportunity to have different writers out. One of my favorite science fiction writers, David Brin, who is
Oh yeah.
actually lives out there in Orange County as well, came and spoke with us. And I think his Startide Rising and series is one of the best science fiction series out there as well.
Cool. Now, are there any young adult authors that you would think would be good on this podcast or good to interview?
Sure. I don't know if you've spoken with any of the other Future House Publishing writers,
A
but
couple of them, yeah.
yeah, I think that any of them would be wonderful. I was able to sort of man the Future House Publishing booth over the Salt Lake City Comic Con with them, and all very gregarious folk who really know their craft.
Yeah, I've spoken with Kevin Nielsen and Jared. Is it Jared Garrett?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
gotten to talk to a lot of people. All right. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you've still got your evening ahead of you. I really appreciate you responding to my tweet
Of course.
and getting back with me. And it's been wonderful hearing your story and your background.
Well, thank you so much, Philip. You have some great questions, and I love that you're doing this. I love that you're getting the word out about YA literature, and I think this point of storytelling in so many young people's lives can be so incredibly influential into the kind of people that they grow into.
It can. It is. Thank you for listening to the Young Adult Books Podcast. This podcast is for you, the listener and reader. You can help make the podcast better in a bunch of ways. You can go to yabookspodcast.com and comment on the episodes. While you're there, you can tell me who you would like to hear interviewed and what questions you would like to ask. You can sign up for the mailing list there too, and I'll let you know what exciting things are happening. You can also email me with questions or comments at yabookspodcast@gmail.com. I'd love it if you'd subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating and review. This will grow the podcast the fastest and help the authors I've interviewed to find the people who want to read their books. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.